Today, we're going to try to answer that age old question. Does size really matter when you're buying an adventure or dual sport motorcycle? Rather, you're somebody who is new and looking to get into motorcycling, or maybe you ride a street specific bike like a Harley or a Cruiser or a crotch rocket, and you keep passing those roads going, I wonder where that goes. I wonder where that goes. So now you're considering about buying a dual sport or adventure bike. What do you do? Do you go with a big bike or do you go with a little bike? And today we're going to try to answer that question as best as we possibly can. So I ride a CRF 1100 Africa Twin, and I absolutely am in love with the big bike. But today's guest is the polar opposite. He rides a 250, or excuse me, a CRF 250L. And what a perfect guest to come on and talk about that, since he and I have ridden a lot together. We've camped together and we both have different opinions on big versus small. So, ladies and gentlemen, the intergalactically known, the internet sensation, the YouTube master, Critter Moto. What's up, brother?
Hey Ian, how's it going?
It's going good, man.
Thanks,
It is
thanks for
going.
the hype intro.
Well, you know that's what I do, right? We're hype men, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
I got to tell you, man, when I started kind of thinking about like an idea like this, right? I was
hmm
thinking like, what would you do if you were a new person? And you can go on the old interwebs and you can just search this topic. And I mean, it's overwhelming on the amount
Oh, it is.
of,
It is.
yeah. I mean, do you go with somebody who might be biased, right? Or do you go with somebody
hmm
who's a little bit less than biased? Or do you go with somebody who has a lot of knowledge or somebody who's new and getting into it? My opinion is you take it all, you put it in a little jar, mix it up, and then create your own opinion, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I
Take
think,
out what you deem worthy, right?
oh, yeah, absolutely. So I think really what I want to get into, since you ride the little bike, and let's just get into a little history of Lucy, which is your bike's name. But
Okay.
why don't you get into
Okay.
a little bit, like when you were deciding to go from your cruiser from Candy, and you're like, I'm going to go do this stuff. Maybe kind of let the listener know who may not know you why you ended up going with the CRF 250L instead of a big bike. And also
Sure.
before you say that, let me say this too. I think we need to put bikes into a category. There's only two categories here, right? So we're going to go with the little bikes and the big bikes. So I think anything around the 500, the 501, somewhere in that ballpark, we're going to take those and put those in the little bike category. And I think
Okay.
anything bigger than that, we'll put in the big bike, because I think the Tenere 700, the T7, I think it's so
hmm
close on weight and size. Whatever, 700 to 1100,
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same thing. So let's,
Right.
for argument's sakes, those are going to be the two categories today. So, anyways, back to the OG question, yo. What why did you end up buying Lucy there, guy, instead of like a GS?
Well, geez. Basically, I spent a better part of 2 years researching before I actually got Lucy. I had my first taste of dirt on my son's Kawasaki 450 um, dirt bike. Like he used to do dirt bike racing, and it was a race bike. And even though that bike scared the crap out of me, it was a lot of fun to get into the dirt. I've come from the world of street all of my riding career, um, basically riding for what is it now? 40, God, like 40 years I've been riding. And aside from the last 7 years, it's all been on street. Um, 1100s, 1300s, big cruisers, big bikes, lots of power, lots of highway capability, that kind of thing, right? But when I wanted to get into the dirt, like I said, I spent a better part of almost 2 years just researching absolutely everything. Um, you know, geez, I can't even remember. The Huskies, the KTM's, They all came to mind. They were all of interest. I was drawn by their power, thinking that I needed lots of power in the bush. You need power. You need power. Coming from street bikes, you need power. It gets drilled into your head, and I don't know. I've always been a Honda guy as well.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna go strictly dirt bike and trailer and truck it or trailer it to the bush all the time. And then I came across dual sports, and I'm like, hey, this is kind of neat. And then I happen to see people camping on a dual sport, and I've always loved camping, and I've always loved the outdoors. And it sounds strange, but it's like all of a sudden I seen that guys were in the bush in the backcountry on these bikes camping, and it was a light bulb moment. I was like, yeah, I need a dual sport. So that narrowed my search down to a dual sport. I needed something that was street legal and something that can get me into the bush. Being a Honda guy, I started looking at Hondas. I looked at the WRs. The XT was too small for me. The WR was a little too twitchy for me. The WR likes to get up and run. And like I'd mentioned, I'd never ridden on the dirt before, so I was playing it cautious, if you will. I got to preface that with saying that I am a self-employed individual. So when I get hurt, I can't work. The family starves. So that was always in the back of my mind, looking for a bike, for a motorcycle. I didn't want something that was going to scare me. I wanted something that I could basically learn on, and not really run a huge risk of a crazy whiskey throttle and ripping my arms out or jumping off cliffs by accident, or what have you, right? So in a sort of a broad way of saying it, I went with the CRF250L because it was the safe choice, if you will.
Okay.
And I have a bunch of friends that they told me, oh yeah, it's going to be a great bike to learn on. Yeah, but you'll outgrow it. You'll ride it for a season, you'll outgrow it. Well, it's now 7 seasons, and I haven't outgrown it yet. It's turned out to be the absolute perfect bike for me. But I think you get into the pros and the cons later on.
Yeah, we'll
Um,
get into that.
but in answer to your first question, why did I go with the smaller bike? It was basically knowing my own personal limits with the bush and not wanting to get hurt, playing it safe, if you will. So that's why I chose small.
Well, there you go. I think that those are all pretty valid reasons too. I mean, for sure. Especially somebody who's, looking to quote unquote be a I use this term very loosely, beginner on off-road stuff, right? So I
Right.
think for me, choosing the big bike, so I too come from the roadside. And so Papa Cakes and I, we would just meet up, and we would go for these epic long day rides, right? So we are conditioned for these like literally like 500-600 mile day rides. And we would go all over the state of Oregon, up and through Washington. We were just exploring. And it was all roads, but we were getting for pavement riding. It was very, excuse me, it was very backcountry esque, right? Just being on the pavement. We wouldn't stay on the highways. We would take all the back countries
Yeah.
and the scenery and all the highways or whatever in the back. Um, and then, trips to Moab, whatever, doing the long stuff is something that I really love. And, I did this long solo trip on my FJ09 and went all through like Utah and stuff and into Cali and back up into Oregon. And when I was first getting into, truly getting into the ADV riding, I was I would always joke around and just say my FJ is GS because I wrote it like that. I didn't care. I threw some tires on there. I think they were like, maybe 80-20 or something in that ratio so I can go off road. And, she was a torquey little lady off road for sure. But, that was my first intro to off road. And, you know, eventually, some other riding and stuff goes on, but then you're like, okay, I am going to get an ADV bike. So I did the same thing. Like I started kind of doing some research and I narrowed it down to the two, right? So it was a GSA and um the Honda Africa Twin. So I went into BMW and I was like, I want this one. We talked to the sales guy and everything, and he came back to me with like a giant number, like a giant number. I mean, this bike had like polished heads, like custom polished heads and all this stuff. And it came back and I was just like, "Oh, there's no way this is not going to fly at home." You know, that price point is so far out of the way. So I ended up, hunting down a Honda Africa Twin, and we ended up getting that, and it was the same thing. So for me, my wants and what I wanted in a bike is I wanted to be able to go off road and live off road, camp off road, same thing that you did. Like I love camping and being outside. So that bike needed to do that. But I wanted to be able to single track, double track, whatever on a bike, but also turn around and ride it across the country and be comfortable if
Right.
I have to bebop down the highway for several hundred miles. And so to me, the Africa Twin was kind of that bike. And then once I bought it and started riding it, I was like, dude, this is the best bike I've ever ridden, hands down. Like the first one, we called it the AT-AT, and I'm sure a lot of you know about it. If you don't know, my first Africa Twin 2021 was, I mean, it was awesome. I love that thing. So, but now we have the new bike. Should I say it? Should I say the name? I haven't announced the name yet.
Oh, do you have a name? Oh, I don't even know the name.
Oh, maybe I'll say it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Flash. It's Flash, not as in the Flash, but it's like Flash Gordon.
Ah,
I don't know,
gotcha.
dude. I was out riding. The neighbor Dave went, "It's the Flash," and I'm like, "No, it's just Flash." And I went, "Oh shit." He just named it. It's not a good name, but there it is. There we go,
There
kids.
you go.
We got
Nice.
Flash.
Right on.
Yep. hmm So, anyways, that's kind of the reason that I was looking to buy the big bike. So now, if you're listening, you have Critter with the small bike, and you understand where he came from.
Mhm.
And then I think another thing that we also need to add to maybe a bit of your purchase is where you live on Vancouver Island, because that probably contradicts, the necessity for a big bike up there, unless you're going to have a bike specifically to travel, catch the ferry, and travel across. But I think even if I
Yeah.
lived on the island, I
Yeah.
would probably consider something a little smaller, maybe.
Yeah,
I
you're right.
wouldn't.
That did play into the decision because the island you can ride from one end to the other and, then you're done. And when I was looking at bikes, travel was not factoring in. Maybe a trip into the mainland, into the BC interior, but I never in my wildest dreams thought that I'd be going down to Nevada. Um, but it
Epic
happened.
trip.
So
That was epic, dude.
yeah, but yeah, so that definitely played into decision. Also, Vancouver Island has a lot of Forest Service roads.
Yeah,
And a lot of narrow accesses. So Vancouver Island really is, you know, uh, some people will probably disagree with me, but Vancouver Island really is small bike heaven up here. It's dual sport heaven up here.
I agree with
Um,
that.
but they're not to say that there aren't guys on the big bikes doing the same thing, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, and you mentioned the price of the BMW. That was another deciding factor for the CRF because I picked up Lucy used, obviously pre-COVID and everything for a steal, and it was like only $4,000, and I was like, yeah, okay, I can totally do that, no problem, and it didn't create waves at home or anything. So it was just at the time a perfect fit.
Well, I think that's another really good conversation piece because you spent, you know, your 4K. And, I just bought the 2024 Africa Twin for 15. Now, I didn't buy the Adventure
Right.
Sport either this time. My old one, the AT-AT, that was an Adventure Sport, and I loved all the extra, the added features that it had onto it. And we'll get down to some of the electronics, but I didn't buy it just because they took the wheel from a 21 to a 19-inch this year, and I on the Adventure Sport, and I didn't want that. Like,
Yeah.
we'll get into more of the riding styles, and you'll kinda hear, like, I ride the Africa Twin like a 250. Like, I'll follow Critter
You
wherever
do.
he goes, you know? And so,
Yeah.
that 21-inch front wheel is important to me, and I was really uncomfortable pulling a trigger on a 19-inch front wheel, and I spent a lot of time trying to find a used twin, but they were going like hotcakes, and then you would find one, and then a guy's like, "Dude, I can buy a brand new one for like a grand more," so it didn't
That's
make any
right.
sense.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, so let's get into a little bit of that trip because I think the Nevada trip, right? So this
Okay.
is there's both videos on my YouTube and your YouTube on the
Yep.
what it was 2023, right? The Giant Loop 23. So yeah, I think so. Let's just go with that.
No, 20,
Yeah, it was
20.
23.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I crashed in
Yeah.
24. Anyways,
Right. Okay, we won't mention that one.
yeah, yeah, we'll forget about that one. But
That's right.
so you can go down and you can watch these videos. So essentially what happens is Critter leaves Canada and he leaves his house and he bombs down to me, and I'm just south of Portland, Oregon. So he comes, we stay, and he and I end up going off on this pretty epic trip. Mostly as much off-road as we can. And I
Right.
take him through some pretty highlighted parts of Oregon. We kind of meander around all these parts. At some point, I think it was actually day 2, Papa Cake shows up. I don't
Yep.
remember. He had
Yep.
something going on or whatever, and he met us down in Mitchell, just right by the Painted Hills. And, you and I are doing our thing, and he comes down, and we spend the next couple days just riding, right? So we're having these days of camping, and we even stayed in a hotel, and then we're just riding, right? So we have some highway pros and cons. We have some off-road pros and cons, right? And then we have some wind condition pros and cons. And
Yep.
really, excuse me, when we got down to Nevada, I mean, we hit a storm pretty head on, right? So I think just that part of the trip gives us a really good justification of the pros and cons. So I think we should go with some of the pros first. You know, you feel free to start on this one, but I think some of the pros of just leaving the house after we had to go to Best Buy and buy batteries because somebody forgot them.
Yeah, right.
But after we
Yeah.
left there, what are some of the maybe just that whole trip, or just in general too. I mean, it doesn't have to be just that trip, but I'm using that as just kind of an example of, our trips are
Yeah.
really blended with that point. So we can talk about it, but maybe on like your aspects, give me a lot of the
Mhm.
pros that you just really, really love about the 250L.
Well, yeah, by the time that trip came around, that was my 4th multi-day trip on the living off the 250L. So right there is a pro. I can live off that 250L. It can carry everything that I need to sustain myself and keep myself comfortable and dry and warm. Um, and it does it with ease without a problem. You mentioned earlier, like you follow me around on the Africa Twin. You said wherever Critter goes, I go and I follow. Well, I'm kind of the same way. Like if you're bebopping down the highway, I'm right behind you, bebopping down the highway, and away we go. Nevada, yeah. So that Nevada becomes a con, but prior to that, all the pros. I mean, the bike performed flawlessly. You had your AT-AT. The Papa Cakes was on the T7, and I had the little 250L. And so all three bikes, were just echoing each other. We all did all the trails the same. We all made through every obstacle the same. We all did all the off road the same. We all did the highway the same. The 250L was capable of all the speed limits. We didn't go on any interstates, right?
Right.
Because I
Right.
wouldn't want to go on interstate, but capable of keeping up to you guys on all the speed limits. The only downside with the 250L really was when we got to Nevada, and that big ass windstorm came through.
Right.
And I mean, that's where, and it's not necessarily just for the 250L either. I think it's for all of the lightweight adventure bikes. That's it's Achilles heel. Is yeah, they're light, and not that the 250L is the lightest, but it's lighter than the Africa Twin. They are light, and they do get tossed around on the road. And that wind that we hit in Nevada, while you were behind me, you saw me dart across it pushed me across the lane of traffic, and like
Which
it
time?
just was not fun. It was not fun at all.
Right. Right. Oh, hitting my camera here. But yeah, I think
Oh, careful.
that windstorm. I really remember once we got down there. Um, I mean, we left the Doherty slide, and headed that way into Nevada, and we saw those clouds for a long time. I mean, we knew we were coming up into something. We had to stop. I had to put on rain gear because I didn't have cool gear at the time. And yeah, I kn- I saw that coming. I just saw that coming. And then once we got
Oh,
into
you're
it,
talking the rainstorm. I'm talking
well,
the
no,
windstorm when
because
we rolled
the
in.
rain came first, and it was, I think, part of that storm. And then we got behind the rain into the wind that was pushing that rain.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah, yeah.
once we hit that, and then we were by that sand. I remember riding by the sand and just getting sand blasted off those dunes too,
Oh, yeah.
going
I thought
down.
I could have swore we were in the Sahara or something. I was like, man, this is a
Oh yeah,
sandstorm. This is crazy. What
it
is
was
this? Never
it was
experienced this
absolutely,
before.
yeah, dude. It was crazy, but I remember watching you just kind of go around and getting pushed. And I think one time you were pushed across the center line, or at least really close to it, from what I remember.
Yeah.
But I do remember a
Hmm.
lot. I mean, dude, you were at an angle, riding pretty hard
Oh,
at an
yeah.
angle.
Oh, yeah. It is. It's definitely nerve wracking riding like that. It happened again this year coming back from Oregon when I was going through the plains of Washington. And
Mhm.
this time I was blown across into the oncoming lane. Thankfully, no other traffic was coming, but
Yeah,
had there been another car coming, it would have been, you know, possibly lights out for Critter.
yeah.
It was pretty scary. So I think on my travels going forward, once the winds pick up, I'm going to stop and I'm just going to wait out the winds.
I think that's a good idea, dude. I think that's a good
I
idea.
think so.
So, I think wins like that are a little bit unprecedented, right? Let's be real.
Yeah.
But I think that was actually a little bit of a pro for my bike getting into that. I think the fairings, the little bit more of the heaviness of the bike.
Yep.
I wasn't blown down or blown around nearly like you were, and I think the energy level that I was putting out was a fraction of what you were doing. Because I remember when we ended up stopping at a McDonald's to get some for you to get some Wi-Fi, and we were down in Winnemucca. And I remember you were kinda grumpy because of the wind, and you were tired, you're like, "I'm done," you know? And rightly
I'm
so.
done.
That, I mean, dude, that was brutal
Yeah.
stuff, and
Oh, it's
then at the
exhausting.
time, we were gonna go meet somebody, like, another 50 miles away, and we're like, "No, no," you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Right, so a
Yeah.
good thing we didn't do that. But I think for me, I mean, I remember looking at you, and I was just, like, riding in the wind, like, the wind where you were struggling with my bike, it wasn't. And I remember, like, messing with my helmet, just kinda looking around and doo-doo-doo-doo, and just riding down the road,
Yeah.
and then, "Oh, that was a good one," and come back over. But I think that is
That's right.
a definite pro for a big bike, con for the little bike.
And definite con for the little bike. Definite con.
Yeah. Now let's
No
talk some
argument
about
there.
yeah. So I think, another pro, you were like, let's be real. If you're going out on a ride, you don't want to hit the interstate. You don't want to hit the big road, right? Little highways, fine. Back highways, fine. US highways, fine. Whatever the equivalent is of the US highway in Canada, all those are fine. But for me, if I was going to go, I don't know, let's just say Big Bend in Texas, right? If I'm going down there, just
Yeah.
pulled that national park out from random. If I was going to go down there, I would hit some of the big roads, just to make time to get down there. So I think that's
Right.
probably another pro big bike, con little bike. Because I know when
Yeah.
we're
Yeah. I
loaded,
would agree.
sometimes we're just kind of cruising, doo-doo-doo-doo, and you're just zoning out and looking at the scenery and just really enjoying the ride. And then I look at my mirror and I'm like, where the hell did Critter go? And it's like we just hit this little bit of a hill, you know.
Yeah.
You're loaded up with all your camping gear, and that just you start kind of falling back a little bit. And granted, sometimes I get a little heavy-handed, and Papa Cakes really get
Yeah.
heavy-handed. So another
Yeah. We won't say the 5 lettered S word for you two guys.
right.
That rhymes with read. No, no, no.
I don't know what you're talking
You
about.
guys are a little fast. I don't know
Yeah.
either. No, no,
Yeah, I do not for what it is. But I think a
no.
definite
But you,
con yeah, I think a definite con for the big bike too is once we get, off-road, right? So, I think what we have to throw into the mix here is if you're a new rider, gravel is a different beast, you know?
it absolutely
There's
is.
just going down just a normal gravel road, like a Forest Service road or whatever. It's just a different beast, and is it loose gravel? Is it chunky gravel? Is it baby heads? Is it just are they getting ready to do some logging somewhere, so they came down and threw 4 inches of new gravel down? There's a lot of different variations, and sometimes you could be doing I never do this, but sometimes you're doing 60 miles an hour down a gravel road, when you turn a corner, and it's just like, "Oh, I got some brand new gravel in there," and, it's a completely different riding style. So, I think there in the gravel, I think there's pros and cons to both as well. The weight of
Hmm.
the big bike makes it a little bit nicer to push down a little bit and cruise through. The lightness of the little bike helps it stay up and just cruise through, right? So,
Right.
it's both, but I think it comes down to, learning how to ride off-road, being comfortable with whatever you decide to buy, but also, I think we have a friend, and I am not at all throwing shade, at all. Tall Man Moto, he and I and he's been public about this as well. He had an Africa Twin. He had a big bike. And there
That's right.
was multiple times I was around him and heard him, whether it was on a live or on a video or whatever, but he would talk about not being comfortable, right? It sounded like when he was on the AT that he was still learning the off-road business and he never got comfortable where I think sometimes faster and more throttle is a lot safer than slowing down and going slow through stuff. I don't know if that was the case or not, but I think sometimes when you have that in your head, it gets in your head, right? So then it kind of withers maybe your growth as a writer, you know? And I think that's another aspect because a big bike can be intimidating to somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of riding experience. Or even somebody, I'll just say maybe you ride like I don't know, a Harley Road King and you're used to a big bike, but
Hmm.
now you're on a whole different animal. And I think it could be very intimidating for somebody. So a smaller bike is definitely a pro, to go buy if you're just learning. That would be my route to go to. Just like you said, I'm going to go buy a 250. And then everybody's like, "I ain't gonna outgrow it," and you're like, I'm not," you know? What do you think about that? Am I, like,
Yeah. No. No.
misspoken or anything, or
No, I tend to agree. Back with Matt, having ridden with Matt when he was riding his Africa Twin, and now seeing him ride his Husky, it's two totally different dudes.
Oh, 100%.
Because now that he's
Yeah.
yeah, now that he's got the Husky that's lighter, more agile, not as intimidating. Um, yeah, he doesn't have that voice in the back of his head saying, "Be careful," that kind of
100%.
thing.
He went
Yeah,
from
and
this rider to, like, this rider, just,
oh yeah,
changing
for
the
sure.
saddle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's rad to
And
see.
and starting small, I know I personally think it's a good idea just because I can remember the first time hitting gravel and having ridden street forever, and once you hit gravel and the back end starts to wobble, and man, it's intimidating as heck.
Right.
um I'm thankful that I had a small little bike that was agile enough, that was basically two steps up from a mountain bike, if you will. And I didn't have to worry about, like I was saying earlier, doing a panic whiskey throttle or anything, like just doing a panic and grabbing too much front brake or what have you, right? So I personally felt it was a smart move to start small. I would I would be in the camp of advising people to start small if they're going into the world of dirt and off road, and I would be the guy that says, don't get too attached to the little bike. You might outgrow it. You never know. I personally didn't outgrow mine, but that doesn't mean that you know Tom next door is going to outgrow his. He probably will. That's one of the great things about bikes is there's no one perfect bike. It really comes down to the rider and what you personally as an individual are comfortable on.
100%. I couldn't agree more, and doing a little bit of show prep. I put my glasses on, so things are getting serious now. Right, and I went through a lot of videos, and more
Mhm.
specifically, I went through videos on this topic, and I went through the comment sections, right? So,
Right.
I wanted to see if I could see, a trend, right? So, I ended
Yep.
up looking at some of the more I just picked 10 questions, like, I just put 1 through 10, and then I started going through these comment sections, and I had, like dude, I had, like, multiple YouTube screens open and all these videos. I'm scrolling through the comment section, and I'm like, "Okay, that. Okay, they all have the same question. Okay, I'm gonna write that down," right? So I came up with 10 of them. A couple of these we've actually already answered, right? So which bike is better for beginners, an Africa Twin or the CRF250L? I think we both are in agreement that probably if you are new to riding and coming whether you're coming from the street, or you're coming just as a brand new rider, I would definitely recommend the smaller bike, 100%.
Right.
Um, can the can the CRF 250 handle a long distance touring ride? We already said that, dude. I mean, you've gone up there and
Yes, it
you've
can.
gone from Vancouver
Yes.
Island down to Nevada. You've been all over Oregon,
Yep.
up to the coast, all
All
over
over.
Washington. I mean, as far as the Pacific
And
Northwest, you will go.
I will add to that my CRF 250L is still stock gearing, stock motor. I've just upgraded the suspension and added a slip on. So it is pretty much, aside from new suspension, which you pretty much have to do on
Yeah,
every lightweight adventure bike, anyways,
every bike.
it's pretty much stock. It is stock
That's rad, dude.
and still
That is
capable of
rad.
doing all the highway travel and stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I think that's spot on too. I'm a guy where the suspension is very important. And once you ride a stock suspension and then a non-stock suspension, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll be like,
Oh yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going back to stock. Spend the money,
That's right.
get the suspension done. Let's see. which bike offers better fuel efficiency, right? And I
Huh.
think that comes down to a
I
lot
wonder.
because when you start talking about fuel efficiency, right, it's not a black and white conversation. There's no black and
No.
white answer to it because you're going to start looking at like if you just had pure road tires on it. I don't know because I don't ride that, right? So we both
Right.
ride knobbies, so that
Yep.
automatically dumps your fuel economy out, right? There's a lot
It
more,
does.
just a lot more trying to push that bike forward. Um, I am brappy as all brappy get out when I ride. I'm always
Yes,
rap,
you
rap, rap,
are.
rap, rap. I like to throw gravel at people behind me. Don't mean to.
Yes, you do.
But as Carl says, if you're getting pelted with gravel, you're too close. So, but that is me. So there's something else that brings the economy down. Now, what I can say,
That's right.
so I had the 2021 Africa Twin Adventure Sports with a 6.4 gallon fuel tank. And I was extremely comfortable with knobbies and my brappy lifestyle at about 220 miles. I wouldn't, if I had to go 220 miles, I wouldn't even think twice about it. I don't start panicking until about 240. And then when I was around the 240 mark, that's all I can think about. It's like, I don't want to run out of go juice. Right. Which I never
Right.
did. And I honestly, I think I got 260 ish miles once upon a time. And I honestly don't remember the tires, the riding. I just remember that number going, wow, that was great. But dude, I
Right.
don't know. That could have been on something. I don't know. Could have been more road riding. Who knows?
Yeah.
But for me
Oh yeah,
now,
you're
yeah. So I got the 2024 now, and it's not the Adventure
yeah.
Sport. So I got the smaller tank. And I've been dumbfounded how crappy it is. Like straight up.
Oh,
That is
really?
one of the biggest cons of my bike right now. I will
Huh.
I will be down to like 2 bars at 130 miles. Like, I'm sorry,
Oh,
what?
no.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
130 miles. I've gone 100 and I think 160. Yeah, I think it was actually more like 170, but right in that 160, 170. And the thing was screaming at me, flashing red, like, get fuel,
Yeah.
idiot. And I was like,
Right, right.
it's been something that kind of threw a pit in my stomach, like, oh no, this range is
Yeah.
terrible. And
Yeah,
granted,
that's not
I'm
fun.
I'm straight up knobbies again, but man, that's one of the big
Yeah.
cons on the new bike. It's just I don't have that
Yeah.
comfortable reach. I mean, I got a fuel bag and an extra gallon, but
Right.
I don't know, man. That's definitely
Yeah, for
so.
me, my fuel mileage is obviously going to be different because I'm in metric. So I was quickly as you were telling yours, I was trying to do all the conversions here quickly.
Okay.
Um, Now everyone knows that a dual sport comes with a ridiculously small tank.
Right.
With the stock tank, I was lucky if I got 150 kilometers on it.
Like 4
I'm not
miles?
sure what that is in miles.
It's like 4.8
Huh?
miles.
Yeah, something like that. Something small. That's right. That's right. So I did put the Icherbis on there, the aftermarket sort of adventure tank. Now, pretty much regardless of how brappy I am or the road condition, tires, whatever, I pretty consistently get about 325 kilometers on the bike. That's about 200 miles. I can go
Okay.
200 miles, not an issue with that. I did get 355 kilometers, whatever that is, on one trip, but a lot of that was downhill. So I sipped a little bit of fuel there. But yeah, with the Acerbis, I will do 200 miles, no problem all the time. The heavy winds will kill me. I will be sucking fuel then, and then I'll go down, obviously. But out of all of my trips, I've only hit the heavy winds twice. So I would say it's a pretty fair average that I get about 200K or 200 miles on that. And at current fuel prices, it costs me $16 to fill the tank, $16 Canadian to fill that tank. And I'll
Oh
go,
yeah.
so yeah, so $16 Canadian will get me 325 kilometers, whatever
Okay.
that is per kilometer, blah, 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 blah.
The good host would have had that already figured out and like the conversion table right here, and I could have just put it in, but we'll figure that out
Oh,
later.
you have a conversion table right there. I was trying to find one on my phone.
No, I said a good host would have already had that up, but yeah, I don't.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, I say though, I can't remember. I think my tank it's supposed to be a 5.1 gallon tank. I've
Right.
never put more than like 4 in it. So I'm wondering if it's 4.1, or maybe
Oh,
there's more fuel
yeah.
in there than I think when it starts blinking red.
Yeah, you have a very large reserve area
Yeah, so maybe I need
potentially,
actually
right?
what I would like to do one of these days is like if I'm with somebody or if I have my fuel bag with me, just run it
Just
out.
run it right out.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
know, you know. But I
yeah,
don't know. I'll probably do that here pretty soon. I've been riding a lot lately, so I should probably
yeah.
do that. Let's see here. Another one of the big questions too. This one was actually like this was in every single comment section. People want to know
Okay.
maintenance costs,
Oh,
and I
okay.
wish I had like here's my numbers, but
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a hard thing. So you're obviously going to have oil changes, right? And
Right.
everybody just do what your recommendations are. Don't do what I do. Don't do what Critter does or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I maintain the crap out of the bikes, right? So I don't want to be out in the wilderness, and as I've said before, there is a difference between the woods and the wilderness.
And the
There's a
wilderness.
big difference. You're in the
There
woods
is.
riding, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, we're in the wilderness now. There's nothing out here." That's not the
Yep.
time you wanna be like, "I didn't do my usual maintenance," and have an issue. So, maintain the crap out of your bike.
That's
So,
right.
your oil, your chain, always I'm a fond believer, man. You park the bike, oil your chain. It it's easy. It takes literally, like, 2 minutes, right? Okay, it takes 3.5, but it's something that can be done. I think oil costs I mean, that really fluctuates. I just changed the oil here pretty
Mm,
recently, and what did I pay? I wanna say I bought some other stuff too. I was in the 70 buck range, but there was other trinkets in there. Um,
right.
dude, I don't know. I'm gonna say somewhere around probably 50 bucks to change the oil with this full synthetic oil, the filter. I do
Right.
the filter every single time, I don't
Yep.
skip out on that. Eric, now here is a con for the Africa Twin. A big con for the Africa Twin actually is the air filters. Like you
Oh,
have to take the side fairings off. So if you have crash bars on, you got to take the crash bars off. Then you've got
yeah.
to take the side fairings off. And then to do it right, you got to loosen or take off the fuel tank. And then you'll get to
Oh,
the air filters on either side. It is a bit of a conundrum. And to do them
yeah.
as much as you should, you're going to get really good at it. Whereas where
Right.
is it on
Right.
Lucy? Is it under the seat?
On my right hand side, under the seat B, and you just pop the side panel, pop, unscrew a lid, pop it out. You're done. I can change my air filter in probably 5 minutes.
Well, yeah,
Click,
I
click,
can
done.
change my air filter in 5 minutes too, after I spend about half an hour,
Yeah.
40 minutes taking everything off.
That's right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
literally once you get good at it, I've seen guys like, "Oh, it's only gonna take you 20 minutes," and they have all these tools to kind of, half-ass
Yeah.
things or whatever, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, that's cool, but I don't know."
Yeah.
I mean, it's a solid hour.
Well, the way,
Solid hour.
yeah, the amount that you maintain your bike, though, you'll get her pretty quick, pretty soon.
Yeah,
I
yeah, just one of
I
those things.
don't maintain mine as much as you do at all. She gets new oil and a new filter, new filters at the beginning of every season, and then that's it.
Oh, really?
That's that's
Okay.
that's all I do to her. That's it. And I'm really bad at oiling the chain. Um, I do it every now and again, and I just adjust it when it gets slack. And yeah, all these thousands of miles, I'm on my second chain and second set of sprockets. Always change your sprockets with your chain.
Yeah.
But she's cost me nothing, absolutely nothing. It's been like you said, just the oil and filters, and it's new oil and filter every season,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Do
Um,
tires?
now the maintenance. Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Oh, I was going to say that's on the Honda, right?
Right.
It would be a completely different story if we were riding Matt's Husky or so and so's KTM or whatever, right? It's just the nature of the performance motorcycles. They need a lot more maintenance than
It,
than than what we have.
right. And KTM owners are very good at working on their bikes.
Yes, yes, you have to be a mechanic, a licensed
Yes.
mechanic to own a KTM, I think.
I think I think that's absolutely correct. All right, let's
Yeah, yeah.
I wish I
You were gonna
had
say
like
tires?
solid numbers. Yeah, but I wish I had solid numbers for somebody who was looking for it. And honestly, again, there are bikes out there that are notoriously maybe a little bit more of an issue to own than other bikes.
Right.
And I think I like Honda. I am a Honda guy, and I'm a Honda guy because they
Yeah.
will run forever. Like, absolutely for so as we're recording this, we're not gonna take a huge, horrible situation down in Southern California with all the fires and everything burning, all the cities that are just gone now. I did
Yeah.
see today a video of a little it must be like an 80, like a CR80 or an XR80 or something, and another Honda, and it looked like the fire went right over it. One side of it was completely melted away, and the other side was fine and whatever. And the guy went out there, I think it was like 2, 3 kicks on the Kickstarter, thing fired right up. Right.
Right.
So, like, all right, Hondas, let's go. But, the cost is gonna be different on maintenance for a lot of different bikes, right? So,
It is.
Hondas are probably gonna be less maintenance than, we'll just say, the KTMs, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just that's my
Yeah.
assumption.
And
I
the
was gonna
and the
say
and the parts are gonna cost less.
yeah, I mean, they're more available, right?
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna say tires. Do tires fall under the maintenance, Because the rule of thumb, if you're a new rider and you don't know anything about tires,
Mhm.
the rule of thumb for tires is you put a brand new set of tires on. You'll get 2 rear tires to 1 front tire. That's kind of the rule of thumb, right?
General rule of thumb, yeah. Yeah.
But there are things that can happen, like maybe you have front suspension issues and throwing a weird cup in your
Mhm.
knobbies on your front tire. So, I mean, you're gonna chew through your tire a lot quicker. So, I mean, that all just kinda goes maintenance, make sure everything's working correctly, your tires are working correctly and getting
Yeah.
longevity out of them. And then go through
Yeah.
tires because what I run is not what he runs, and what he runs isn't what
That's
our
right.
buddy Sean runs, and what Sean runs isn't what Tall Man runs, so everybody's gonna have their own tire that they
Yeah.
like. So
That's right.
I was a tire whore. I think for a long time, every time I went and got new tires, it was something different. I just wanted to try
Yeah.
something different, So,
Yeah.
in fact, that's what I did this time. I was just like, "I wanna try those." Okay, throw them on.
Yeah.
I love them.
And that's what you
So
gotta do. You gotta go through them, and then,
yeah,
much like I said earlier, like, it's up to each individual. Once you find the perfect combination for you,
right.
that's what you stick with.
Absolutely.
Personally, for me right now, it's the RALs that work really, really well for me.
Mhm.
But I know of other people that, like, no, I don't like them, and well, that's
Right.
fine. That's good. You just got to find the right tire that works for you. But tires are like brake pads. They're expendables, right? You,
100%.
you have to, yeah, you have to be prepared to be purchasing those things.
Yeah, and the rule of thumb too. Once you put new tires on, you got that 100-mile break-in period, which whatever. Just don't ride like an idiot
Yep.
for a while until all the
That's
little
right.
knobbies, the little nipples or whatever are off and the lines are gone, and then do your thing, right?
That's right.
So let's see. There's two really good questions coming up. So one of which
Okay.
right now, this is going to be a pretty quick answer, I think, for both of us. But this one is, which bike has a better aftermarket support and customization option? I literally
Ooh.
copied and pasted that off, and it was the same guy in 3 videos with the same question. And I was like,
Is that right?
I think somebody wants to know an answer, right? So I'm actually
Wow.
going to tag him in the description below on this, but
Uh-huh.
because I didn't copy and paste his name, or I would say it. But, I'll go back and find it. I know where I can get it. But,
Yeah.
I the aftermarket world for both bikes is out of control. I mean, you can get whatever you want:
Yeah.
exhaust systems, motor parts,
Yeah.
fairings, sticker packs, windscreens, fenders, suspension. I mean, literally, if it's
Graphics,
on the
everything.
bike, yeah, if it's on
Yeah.
the bike, you can get aftermarket. So
Yeah.
that is something that seems like people wanna know, but honestly, the aftermarket for all of these bikes, especially now in the adventure world, uh, you know, I strongly recommend one of the first things that you do is you upgrade your crash bars and your bash plates, your skid plates underneath.
Yeah.
As you find yourself riding from beginner to super advanced, right? I think I am average at best, right? And crazy stupid average at best. I'll do that. But that's just where I feel I put myself. I bottom out on my twin doing stuff sometimes where I'm like, "Oh no, I gotta stop and look.
Yeah.
What did I just bottom out on?" Or you'll
Right?
just spend the money because again, in the wilderness, you don't want to try, "Oh, I'm gonna go over that log," or whatever, and your little OEM skid plate underneath gets a hole in it and you puncture a hole in your oil pan, and now you're
That's right. That's right.
screwed. You're absolutely
Yes.
screwed. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So
I think with whatever bike it is that you're purchasing, I did a video about my CRF and my personalization and my mods, and in that video, I talk about the very first thing you need to do to your off-road motorcycle is protection. This is your
yeah.
investment. Like, you need to get protection on here before you start ripping around and jumping logs and dropping it on rocks, because once you break that engine casing, you're foobarred. So
Oh,
yeah,
100%.
protection's paramount.
Oh,
That should be
100%.
your first thing to purchase for the bike,
So
because the
here's the
first thing
thing.
you purchase for yourself is protection. You're with
Yeah,
your helmet and your gloves and your boots, so now you
all the
buy
gear all the
protection for your
time.
bike.
That's right.
Yep.
So here's the thing. Send me that link to that video and I will drop it in the description
Okay.
below and people can just
Yeah. Okay.
go right to your video. Right there. Boom. Go
That's
right to it and
that's like
figure it.
God, that thing's 5 or 6 years old now.
Perfect. Bring it
I
up.
need to I need to
Resurrect
do
it.
a I need to do an
Resurrect it.
updated one. Yeah. That's before the beard, dude. That's way before the beard.
Oh my gosh. You remember when he shaved like 6 months ago or a year ago and he scared all the children?
Right?
Yeah, that was crazy. Okay. So we got a couple more to get through. I kind of wanted to keep on a little
Yeah.
bit of a time frame here, but
Yeah.
how do the this is another big question that was on quite a bit of them. Um, and I paraphrased several questions into this. So it's kind of a
Right.
roundabout question of a bunch of questions. But how do the two bikes compare in comfort and ergonomics, right? So
Right.
for me, the big bike on the twin, I have all the wind protection of the fairings. I have an adjustable windscreen up and down, which is phenomenal all the way down off road. And if I'm getting on a highway or something and I know I'm going to be out there for a while, boom, put it all the way up. super comfortable. I can adjust the airflow with that windscreen in the summertime if I want more wind coming through or not. The rain, you can put it up, keeps more off. There's a lot of comfort protection just based off the fairings alone. The comfort
Right.
of the OMC kind of sucks. I mean, as most do, it's comfortable and you can get by
They
and
do.
put on lots of miles, but that's one of the OEM or the aftermarket things. I would suggest going to like Seat Concept, for example, and just buying one of their
Yep.
seats for your bike. It makes a huge difference if you're going to start really riding long distances and long miles. Um, that is a con of my bike. That's just I haven't replaced it on the new bike yet. Something I have to do because I have noticed right about where I sit, crotch level, there is something in the seat that goes side to side that's like a little ridge or something. So after like 2 hours, I'm like, "This sucks." So I
Right.
gotta ride back a little bit further to get comfortable, and then, of course, once you get off road, whoop, you can kinda sync up a little bit more closer to the front. So the ergonomics on my bike, though, the peg position, you can get aftermarket pegs if you want. The peg position, you can adjust the shifter position into a really great, comfortable spot. I like the more upright seated position that all dual sport and adventure bikes have over, like, say, a crotch rocket,
Right.
anything forward
Yeah.
leaning.
Yeah.
I really like the ergonomics of the bike. It's very well you need to know when you buy a Honda that you're actually buying a Honda for a bike that is really specced out for a mid 5 foot something, like 120-pound Japanese guy, because that's really what they spec them
That's
out
right.
for. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to ship them over to the States, right? So me, I'm 6'3", 220. So I'm not that small Japanese guy. So you have to do, again, the suspension and a lot of other things to get your bike set right. You got to maybe move the bars forward or back and just make sure you're in a comfortable seated position. I got it dialed in, and I think it's minus the seat, but I think it's an amazing, comfortable bike, 100%.
Right.
What about you?
Right. Well, with me, with the dual sports, all dual sports, like you mentioned the seats, so we'll talk about the seat right away. You're riding a 2x4, and you need to upgrade that. So I have a Seat Concepts on mine. And then we get back into the monetary value. With me only spending $4,000 on this bike, I then had extra money to get a new seat, to add a small little windscreen on there, to add new bars on there, and really just have that extra bankroll to really customize it to suit my build at 6'2", 220. Um, kind of almost the same as you. I always thought you were a bit bigger. You're taller than me, but
I'm
anyways,
pushing 6'4". It depends on what shoes I wear. Come on.
there you go, there you go. But yeah, with it being at that lower price point, there is that extra bankroll to spend the money needed to customize it and get it comfortable.
Yeah.
In its stock form, the stock seat, there was no way I was going to be able to pull 8-hour days, although I did. Um, but it was painful at the end.
I bet.
Now with the seat concepts, that seat concept seat, I've got the Comfort Tall, I think they call it. And I can go an 8-hour stretch on that bike without a problem. Um, you know, Anybody 8 hours on a bike is going to be, oh, I got to get off the bike. But at least my rump isn't screaming at me like it used to when with the stock seat. Um, and then I put bar risers on it. There's a whole nother topic of conversation about risers, whether
Right.
you should have them or
Mhm.
not. I personally have them and enjoy them. The only reason why I have a new set of bars on there is because I bent the other ones. Um, but yeah, all the creature comfort things, the slip-on exhaust, the suspension, even after all of that added in, I am still under $9,000 into this bike, and it
Yo, that's
is
good.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. You really got her dialed in, man. I mean, you really do.
Um, yeah, I did. It's been what, about 4 years of just adding little bits and pieces, and I think what really started is when I started touring and started traveling. Like it was fine out of the box for riding my little dirt roads and stuff, but then um, creating it into a true multi-purpose dual sport. That's where all the little customizations came in with the nav tower and all that stuff, and
Right. Yeah.
the seat and stuff. Yeah,
That's a whole nother
necessity is the
conversation and
mother of
stuff
invention,
too.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's get down to another question here. So
Okay.
we kind of already this is another one. It's which bike is more suitable for dual sport riding, both on and off road? And I think we really covered this
Yeah.
already. I mean, both are
Well, yeah, because it's really
fantastic.
gonna it's
Ding.
yeah, and it's gonna come down to the individual rider.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
you ride your Africa Twin like a dual sport, and I ride my dual sport like a GS. So
Right.
it really comes down to it really comes down to the
Yeah.
rider, right?
Your
So
personal preference. Yeah, 100%.
yeah,
100%. So here's the
yeah.
last one. And this is actually a pretty good question. And I did save this for last because I thought we would rip through all these others. This would be like our conversation piece. We spent a lot of time just chit chat about other stuff. But anyways, we got what's the difference of technology and features between the Africa Twin and this CRF L or the 250L? So
Right.
it's night and day because you don't have any.
I don't. I don't. We will add that my CRF is a 2015.
Yeah.
The newer 300s do have ABS. I don't have ABS. I don't even have ABS on mine. So mine is
Right.
as basic a motorcycle as you get.
Right. And so I think a lot like on mine, I have 6 different modes I can flip through. I've got 2 modes that are completely customizable. Um, I've got traction control I can turn on and off. I've got the ABS I can control on and off, and wheelie control and stuff all on this bike. And honestly, if
Right.
you're learning, um, I actually had a trouble with this because I would turn off the traction control but I might be doing something where it's like, I don't really wanna do a wheelie. So I would leave the
Hmm.
wheelie control on. You have 1 through 7 on both the traction control and the wheelie control, and I would turn traction control off, and then I would leave the wheelie control on, like, 1, maybe 2, right? And so I ended up riding with this girl named Morgan, and she rides an Africa Twin. And in fact, you know her. She was up at
Yeah.
Gliffy this year. I almost said the old way. Listen to me.
You almost
I, I,
did.
I'm growing as a person, Critter. I'm growing. But
I'm
anyways,
proud of you.
we were out riding, and I was having some troubles. I was like, man, it's like my traction control's off, but it's still not really off. And she was like, hey, like how I heard it was a hey dummy, even though it was like, hey, this is why. Like she was
Yeah.
being amazing and totally nice and stuff. But when I talk about it, it's like I think I'm kind of dirt sometimes. So she said, when you leave your wheelie control on, it still has your traction control activated because that's what's controlling your wheelie control. Like game changer. Turn both of those off. Full hooligan mode, full on hooligan mode. You can do stupid stuff, and it's awesome. So that's basically how I
Yeah.
ride. As soon as I hit gravel, I stop. I turn everything off because I like to get sideways and do stupid things and
Yes, you do.
usually
Yep.
crash, but that's fine. So yeah, the technology aspect. Now I will throw in a little bit of the tech for the GSA, just a little bit. We have a friend Sean that has that, and I think if you're looking for the end all be all, like you're just gonna tour and you're gonna ride that bike
Yes.
whatever down the road, maybe some gravel or whatever. I would say the BMW, God, it's a 1300 now. Is it an R1300 GSA? I would say that is
Yeah.
probably going to be your end all be all with comfort levels, um, your creature comforts, and your electronic, the way you can dial that thing in electronically.
Oh,
And
yeah.
listening
Yeah.
to him talk about what the computer does and all this stuff, I'm just like, dude, that's amazing. Actually, I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, um, that's kind of all that I had right now, for this. I really wanted to keep it around an hour. And it's
Yeah.
kind of funny. I never thought I would do a podcast with a list. I'm like, if I ever have a list, I'm never doing it. But when I start thinking about kind of changing some things up and really kind of driving in some factors of, I've got like a list of 10 podcasts like this, that I'm going to end up doing. And I really like it because it's almost like tech talk, it's kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So I'll still
Yeah.
do the usual stuff, the regular
Yep.
Cakes, but this one's going to be pretty rad on its own. So
This one's like Late Night with Ian.
late night with pancakes. Bow, bow, bow. Okay, we just went off on a tangent. Um, so
Oh,
I
yeah.
think the synopsis of this entire epi is if you are new and you're looking to get into
Mhm.
motorcycles, or you are a rider looking into dual sport adventure, I think there is no right answer for you, honestly. Critter said this
No.
2 times already, and I'm just gonna reiterate this to kinda hit it home. I think if you are brand new, go start small. Find the small bikes that you want. You've got the 250, you've got the KTM 390. I think they're still making that.
The
You've got
Himalayan.
the Royal Enfield. I mean, those things go forever, you know?
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot
Yep.
of smaller bikes that you can get that don't have massive power and you can learn and be comfortable on. And I think that comfortability and the bike that you're on, hands down the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
You can always upgrade later. You're not buying your end all be all bike now. It's not like you're getting a dog and says, my forever dog, right?
Yeah.
You're buying a bike, you can upgrade later. Now, if you're coming from like the Harley World or a Cruiser or a Crotch Rocket or whatever, and you already are camping and you already have a style, and you like doing the long distance, then I would actually 100% say, go check out the Africa Twin, go check out the GSA, make your decision based on this conversation and what your needs are. If you're somebody that's
That's right.
just like, I'm just going to ride around town, I'm going to go up to the OHV parks and I'm going to maybe trailer it if I gotta go over, say 75 miles, I'm gonna trailer it to that place. Dude, little bike all day. That's you. But it's gonna be the bike that is
That's right.
best for you, right?
That's right. That's right. And don't be intimidated or pressured into buying something that's potentially wrong.
Right.
Don't feel about being belittled or anything for having a littler bike. Um, like I follow YouTube like crazy. I'm a little bit
What?
obsessed with it, and I've
You
noticed the
do?
real yeah, I've noticed the real trend since I've started riding my bike. There was a real push, bigger, 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 and lots of guys were getting bigger bikes. Lots of guys were getting
Yeah.
bigger bikes, and oh yeah, I need the newest and flashiest. And I even bought into it. I really wanted an Africa Twin. I was like, oh, I gotta have that bike. Um, and then people started getting hurt. And now it's all of a sudden, oh no, let's go down to the 700. Let's get the 690. Let's go down to the 500.
Mhm.
Things are sort of going backwards a little bit, and there's a real sort of interest in the middleweight category, if you will. Not necessarily like the lighter bikes like mine, like the
Right.
250s and the 300s, but there's a real interest in the middleweights because I personally think too many new riders or street riders were coming into the game and grabbing these 1100, 1200, 1300 cc machines and hurting themselves just because there is so much power. And like you had said, riding off-road is a completely different animal, completely different, and it's something that takes time and effort to learn how to do well.
I agree. And I think we need to touch on one more topic real quick,
Yeah.
the weight. Riding
Wait.
with the light bike at the 250 versus mine, which is over 550 pounds. Okay, so we
Right.
already said I'm going to follow Critter 250, and we're just going to go. Now,
Yeah.
when Critter was in the wind and we were going down in Nevada, and we got down at the end of the day, I was like way less effort, and you were getting kind of frustrated at the end of the day. Role reversal, single track, bombing through the woods. I'm fighting that weight back and forth. Maybe going up a hill, trying to turn some tight corners. There's a lot of core involved with it. There's a lot of just weight distribution. There's a lot of feather in the clutch, and a lot of throttle and stuff, where I will make it up somewhere and I am spent, where the guys on the little bikes make it up somewhere and they're like, "Hey, dude, brr, brr, brr," and they're fine. So that is completely around. And that happened to get lost this last year. I went out with the Adventure
Right.
Cooperative and we ran into like Kathy, that Canadian rider, and like the guys on those little bikes, and like a whole group of people ended up on this viewpoint. And I got up there on, at the time I was riding Eeyore, which was the Super Tenere 1200. And I made it up there and somebody
Right.
looked at me and goes, "How the F did you make it up here?" I don't know, I just rode, you know. But I specifically remember like trying to be like, "Yeah, I just rode up or whatever." But I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
spent. I was like, "I need like 20 minutes
Right.
of just sitting here," because that was
Yeah.
brutal coming up here. So that is another very important aspect between the 2 bikes. And then probably
Hmm.
another one, if you are a beginner and you're going off-road, get the little bike so you can understand the weight and where the center of gravity is just gone and coming over. Because my fuel tank, my bike sits a little higher, right? So my fuel is
Yeah.
up higher, so I have a higher center of gravity, so that's gonna be a little tippy once you start going over. In fact, I had the first tip over, oh, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago. I was by myself, just cruising around, and I got turned around with snow, and I when I went over, there was this log, and we had a pretty huge fires around here several years ago. So in the windstorms and stuff, we have these burnt snags that will fall over the road. I go up to the thing and I kinda
Right.
line up, and it was, like, at a weird angle to the road, so I kinda lined up for it, and I went over it the first time like a boss, I boom, and even me, I was like, "You did that good, good job, pat yourself on the back." But what happened is when I went over with the rear tire, brapitis kicked in, and it took
Uh-huh.
all the bark off the top, right? Didn't notice it.
Oh
Go up
no.
there, get turned around snow. I'm coming back, and I'm like, "Oh, I gotta go over this again." No big deal. But then I saw, like, uh-oh, now it's just wood, right? It looks slick. It's been raining
Right.
all day, it's cold out. So I go up and I go way too easy over it. I should have just freaking hit the thing. I come over there, rear wheel hits it, slides out, put my foot down. Mind you, I'm by myself, and I am yelling at the top
Yes.
of my lungs, "I'm not tipping over. I'm not tipping over." I'm tipping. You know, 'cause I can bike down. And then I'm by myself, and I'm like, "I hope I can get over this thing. I don't wanna have to call home and be like,
Right.
"Can my son come get me, please?" But I ended up, like, just standing next to the bike and just popping the clutch, getting over it, but I was laughing the whole time. I was like, of course, I don't have cameras going. I was just like, "I'm just gonna ride today. I'm not gonna film nothing." And that happens.
Right.
We can't make fun of ourselves. What good is it, right? Holy moly.
Exactly. That's right. It's all about having fun.
That's right. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. You can find Critter Moto at crittermoto.com and all the socials. You can go find them on YouTube, which is the most important. You can find them on the Instagrams, the Facebooks, and I don't know, everywhere else that you can like have social media probably. And so go to Critter Moto. Make sure you follow his channel if you don't already. Make sure you watch his videos. And when you watch the videos, please make sure to like the video and leave a comment because that helps both of us out a ton with that old, what is that thing called? An algorithm? Just pushes it
An algorithm.
out to more people. So
That's
it's
right.
something that's greatly appreciated by both of us. Um in case you guys haven't noticed, we're kind of BFFs. Hey, guy. So, I don't know, man. You got anything coming up that you wanna pimp out real quick?
Geez, no. Yeah, no, just I don't. I don't know. What am I going to pimp out? Nothing. We got,
Plenty.
I'm the founder of Get Lost, Find Yourself. So
There you go. What
we always have that every year.
well,
You
what
can
are you
check
doing
out,
this year that's
check that
different?
out.
What's Cliffy
This year, what am
doing
I
2
doing different?
times this year that's different than all the other years, and you're gonna have 2 of them before the big event. There's 2 things that you got
Oh,
going
that's
on.
right.
There you go.
That's
Slow
right.
pitch.
So we got the big event September, the
Yes.
year end event in September. That's the fundraiser. We also have in April and May, we will be having two Get Lost Find Yourself mini events. These events will be focused more on education. They will still have the camping and riding element, but we will also be offering a course through that. We're developing courses in conjunction with Heads Up Guys. Who is a nonprofit here in Canada, based out of the University of British Columbia, and
Beautiful.
they are the number one internet resource for men's mental health, the number
Yes.
one in the world. And so we are developing courses. Our first course will be something along the lines of, how do I help my guy? How do I help my friend? How do I help my best friend? How do I help my brothers, my father, my husband? So it'll be for people to basically create a little toolbox for themselves to assist those that they love, that maybe struggling themselves, and give them a little bit of a helping hand. So
It's
really looking
beautiful.
forward to the minis. And if they turn out really well, then we may be doing many more in 2026. So that's
Love it.
getlostfindyourself.com and headsupguys.org.
And if you wanna find out more about Heads Up Guys, go to the podcast before this one, and the founder CEO, Dr. John, is on there for over an hour talking
Oh, I
about
cannot wait
all
for that
things.
one.
Yes, it's gonna be at it's not dropped yet as of we're recording this one, but it's gonna be dropped here the next couple days. And so this one
Okay.
will be after. So, anyways, yeah, no, go check it out. Dr. John's freaking amazing human. I met him at Get Lost this year, and he was just stellar, absolutely stellar. And then when he agreed to come on the podcast, I was like, "I'm sorry, what? Okay, let's roll with
Yeah.
this."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. Yeah, that's what's going on. Go to motocakesadv.com. You can get all the merch for me, and crittermoto.com, get all the merch for him. And with that, I think we're out, man. Crittermoto, I appreciate you, brother. I
Excellent.
love you.
Hey, man. Love you too. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Oh, I can't say bye. I got to say, okay, bye.